Welcome to the Hundredth Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. I think we're gonna start doing more shows like we're getting ready to share with you guys tonight. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been exploring consciousness, spirituality, reality, truth for coming on 30 years now. And I mean intensely for 30 years. I mean, sure, there's been those slack moments where I slip back into 3D but it has been a dominating factor in my life for a long time. And doing this radio show for the last 7+ years has really fleshed out my knowledge and my understanding, and what I it's making me ask better questions now, and questions that really have a broader meaning and truth. So, anyways.
Yeah. Well, not only with that, but with all these guests that we talk to, each one of us has our own personal questions. And even though the topic of the guest might not be something that goes along with one of our own thought patterns, it seems like it always sparks something, or you can get just that thimble of truth on a completely different subject,
right?
And it's just a good way. I mean, me just doing this show for a year now, or
you're coming up on 2 years now.
Okay.
Time's flying, right?
Yeah, but I mean, just doing this show for almost a couple of years now, so many questions that I've thought about, on completely unrelated topics that we've talked about with guests have been answered, or have shown me, the next step to take into answering that question or getting better understanding of that question.
Yeah. At one point we started doing we did a couple of after show conversations, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about those conversations that we have after we do an interview. I mean, we have some really we bring some amazing points out and cover some stuff in a really deep and meaningful way. So, what I kind of like to do here in the near future is maybe pick a topic a week. Let's talk about love. How about and we're not gonna. I won't lock ourselves into the whole conversation on those topics. We will play organic with it, but a good start off and launching point, and kind of a central focus for the conversation. So and share what you and I have learned from doing this stuff, from doing our exploration, and share our questions. Because I don't know that I ever leave any of my contemplations / meditations / whatevers without a question at the very end.
Oh yeah.
It's
yeah. Well, one answer is just another question. It doesn't seem like I feel like I've gained so much understanding and overstanding and understanding here in the last couple of years. I feel like I've gained so much of that, but along with that, I've gained just as many questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Just as many. And I mean, that's the fun part. That shit's entertaining to me. I mean.
I got you. It definitely will give you something very interesting to focus on, right? So tonight. Oh, by the way, we are recording this on September 16th. I think we came across this video that LFE shared with me here a month ago.
Yeah.
If that, when just shortly after it first came out, that no trees, no forests on Earth video that Russian guy made, and he brings up some really amazing anomalies. I mean, now I'm not going to say that. I agree 100% with this whole video and all the posits he makes about the theories that he throws out there for what is going on, but he does bring up some pretty startling stuff. Like we've heard so much, and everybody talks about Mother Earth being alive, right?
Yeah. Well, real quick, if you haven't seen the video, it is called "There Are No Forests on Earth," and you can look for the English voiceover. It's like 120
minutes.
Yeah, 120 minutes, something like that.
117, 120.
Yeah. But in this video, there's a lot of photographic documentation. You know, not to say that it's necessarily evidence, but it's very, very compelling documentation of things that we know exist, that we've seen with our own eyes, and that if you just go out into, you know, almost any mountain range, it seems, just down the road from us is White Pass, and we had a buddy driving over White Pass, and he took some pictures, and you know, it's just more photographic evidence or documentation, whatever you want to call it, you know. So if you haven't seen it, it's full of it. So just watch it.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the first things that really took me deep inside myself on that whole thing was the picture of Mother Earth in her fresh, pristine, full of life state. You know, the springtime of her life.
Yeah.
And I kind of pictured just a completely lush, relatively flat, now, mind you, relatively flat surface, almost completely flat surface in her very pristine state, but it's all life. I mean, it's there, and the
you know, and let's not talk about
I guess the point I'm trying to get across real quick is kind of like in Avatar, the way the root systems of the trees communicate with themselves. I kind of see all the life on the planet at one point being really intimately connected to that network.
Yeah.
That's what my vision
no,
is.
I definitely see what you're saying. What I was going to say is, you know, back to the whole terminology thing, and you know, the stuff with the flat Earth and the round Earth and the globe and all this kind of stuff. You know, you can look at it however you want to look at it, but you know, I think that in my context of looking at it, it's more of a plane of existence. You know, so you'll see a lot of people out there talking, you know, that are talking about this video, talking that it's evidence for the flat Earth or whatever. But you know, keep an open mind to it, and what I think what you were talking about, Tom, as being a flat surface, was that the actual ground level.
Right.
You know, not counting the ginormous vegetation that used to be on here, but the actual ground level.
Just the actual ground level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, and
And I don't think there were any oceans. I mean, of any significance at that point. I think I kind of have envisioned the whole weather cycle and everything. The wobble to the planet, you know, the 23 degrees off axis stuff, is not there. We're like perfectly balanced against the sun. That is highly conducive to life of all shapes and sizes. I mean, so. And that level of consciousness that's there too. So I think it was much more apparent and much more vibrant and palatable during the early stages of Gaia's life.
Yes.
So
well, and you know, taking it to nowadays, you know, what we see on the surface of the Earth now. We were talking on the ride up there to get the van. We were talking about, you know, it's a severe wound. It's a scab.
Yeah.
You know, and we hear that, you know, from other people too, that, you know, that humanity, you know, if you look at it from outer space, it looks like a scab on the Earth. You know, you know, just, you know, destruction, just a scab, and
and the cities look like open wounds.
Yes. Yes. So. And we see it, you know, with what Tom was just talking about, you know, that the whole planet was vegetation. You know, and I like what you said. I didn't think about that. That there were no real oceans, you know, because there was so much life that the water was being continuously cycled through. There was no stagnation on it.
Yeah. I think the oceans are the product of now and guys, I want you guys to understand this. This whole conversation that we're having tonight is theory, all right?
Yes.
There's none of this stuff that I have nailed down and claimed as a truth for myself. But these are all theories and thoughts that we've had along these lines about this whole thought trail,
yes.
Right? So the oceans, the irregularity of the land surface all started from maybe some passing being. It could have been something that evolved here too. One of the first early civilizations that evolved here that developed themselves to the point of awareness and consciousness, maybe just as acute as ours is, and started capitalizing and using the resources at their fingertips, building, creating, making cities. Then they got to go to the stars, right? We've got to go to the stars because we want to know what the hell that is up there, right? We are a questioning species, and I think all sentient life out there is questioning in some form or fashion, or they wouldn't grow. That's what growth's all about, is the question, answering the question. So, anyways, going down that line.
Yeah. Well, and when I watch this video, there's so many different ways you can think about the same thing. So many different ways you can approach it. One of the best examples one of my favorite examples I like in it was Devil's Peak over in Wyoming, right?
Yeah, Wyoming.
Yeah. So if you don't know what Devil's Peak is, they say it's a mountain, right, made of stone that
volcanic stone.
That was created and shaped by flowing lava or flowing magma. And if you just Google this Devil's Peak in Wyoming, you can see that there's what do they say, 300 meters tall, of hexagonal shape, with perfect right angles that go from bottom to top, and then it's flat on top.
And flat on top, and then it curves down like roots,
like a tree stump would. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one way to look at that was that that actually existed as a tree in this reality. And if we talk about this reality, we can go through so many other things. But I also thought about, what if it was an overlay from a different reality? What if everything is happening here and now in all different levels of consciousness. So right now, all of us are experiencing this reality because we're at this certain level of consciousness, whereas somebody with a higher level of consciousness or a lower level of consciousness would experience a different reality, completely out of this one. So what if these things could be, these big structures or these big tree stumps could be overlays, or like a bleed through on, from a different reality, or if we stick to, it being here, in the here and now, but, in our past.
The single linear time track.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Right.
So, Tom, you brought up a really good point about the Anunnaki story and, different theories on how that could be related to this. And, we were talking about that just a week ago or so, but I think that you should share that story.
The Anunnaki story.
Yeah, about the miners.
Oh, well... on into the shipping and all that.
Yes,
stuff?
Yeah.
Well, let's flesh out the tree a little bit more first. Okay. The whole basalt columns. I mean, there's Giant's Causeway. There's Devil's Peak. I mean, that, just looking at that formation, it screams life to me, alive. I mean, that's not formed from volcano.
Yeah.
All right. So this, going back to my original picture of Mother Earth just being alive and vibrant. I mean, think about if the whole surface of this planet was covered with vegetation. The oxygen levels, the CO2 levels are just skyrocketing out of here. I mean, and who knows what our gravity was like then. But I think just the oxygen and CO2 levels and it's been proven, scientifically proven, you put plants in an oxygen-rich environment and they grow gigantic.
Yeah.
They grow huge. I mean, so... The comparisons this guy makes in this video between stump and mountain, it's just fascinating. And to me, it resonates as a very good possibility.
Yes.
I mean, a very good possibility that these are trees, and that at some point there was a giant culture here. You know, whether this, like I said, it very well could have evolved here, and I think to some sense it had to be hybridized at least to the planet to be able to exist here, right? There's too many variables out in the universe that, you know, I can't believe that they all have the same gravity, the same. Well, I suppose that's possible in one. Well, it is in Ron Ray. Oh, let's not go down that. That's a deep pool. But you know, I think that they were. Who said? I mean, what did they say? The tallest ones we've got proposed right now are just 36 feet or something like that. The tallest skeleton supposedly found so far.
Oh yeah,
like 36 foot tall. Okay, well, I'm trying to gauge what it would take, what kind of a chainsaw, and what kind of guys to hold the chainsaw, or a piece of equipment, I suppose. I mean, the technologies are to build huge equipment, right? That could cut the top of that thing off and create that huge of a plateau. So, just gauging by that, we're talking humans that have to be in excess of 100 feet tall. At least. I mean, I can't see this, you know, even, going to the taller end of things, 10, 12-foot guys being able to construct the equipment big enough to cut something like that down. How do they, I mean, it would be just tiny little humans or beings that are 12 foot tall, you know, that's tiny, but in relation to that mountain, that's tiny. How, you know, it's just the whole size thing is just impractical.
It would be something like that, or some sort of advanced technology,
right?
That could make that structure. And if we look at these structures, you know, Devil's Peak, these perfect shapes, right? You know, there's no way that flowing rock could make something that's a exact angle for 300 meters long. I mean, it shows an intelligent design behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and in the video, I mean, they do a side-by-side comparison with the way flax grows. You know, and you can see that the way flax grows and the way these shapes grow, or these so-called
the basalt columns, right?
You know, it's the same. You know, you can see that there's an intelligent design behind it.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think what kind of makes sense to me as far as the size of the beings that were here would have been, like I said, 100-foot range. Now, the next question, if you consider, okay, some intelligent being came here and cut these things down, what did they cut them down for? What were they doing with the material? Now, and we got to throw into the mix here that it's proposed that they were a silicon-based life form, right? Which is completely different than what we are.
Yeah.
Right. We're carbon-based, right? The silicon-based would have to be completely different. I mean, I can only imagine, right? But I mean, Avatar, maybe, you know, I mean, that sort of scenario where the beings would have been that different, I think, or Avatar is an excellent metaphor for this theory.
Yeah.
This whole theory.
Living planet.
Right.
You know, being able to tap into the consciousness, you know.
And okay, now, off on a sidetrack here. Which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So is this whole idea and theory about the no forest, is that a result of Avatar? Was that Avatar idea thrown out in the consciousness, in the conscious field, and it has gestated now for a few years since Avatar came out, and now it's starting to manifest itself in our truth, in our reality. Are we creating this?
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit of a sidetrack there,
yeah.
Right?
That's another platform to jump off of.
Yeah,
right there.
Exactly. And that one's definitely another deep pool. But so, what were they doing with this stuff? They had to have been taking it off planet. That's the only thing I can figure is it's been taken off planet. I don't think we could consume and destroy and redeposit it here and have what we have today.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just too much missing.
Maybe we used to have a hollow Earth.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Maybe we've been mined out,
yeah.
Or maybe it didn't used to be hollow.
Yeah. Or
right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it got mined out.
Yeah.
You know, the whole core's been mined out and shipped off. So this thought trail took me into some pretty dark places here in the last month.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really wrap your head around the magnitude of, if you're looking at the way he proposes there in No Forest, if you look at the magnitude of material mass that is gone, that is missing off of this planet. And then, oh geez, the whole volcano thing's a whole other story here. Okay, let's have your radioactive waste dumps, or the fire you can't put out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like a magnesium fire or something like that, right?
Yeah. There's coal fires that are still burning.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. So that idea really got me thinking about the whole prison planet thing. I mean, if the ones that were doing the work here were a slave race, right? Even the Anunnaki goes from, they created the race to
mine
the gold,
yeah.
Right? So thinking about that stuff, really, and if you consider that we've been in that state through the whole history of humanity on this planet,
yeah,
or we're the remnants of, or the result of thousands and thousands and thousands of years of slavery, and the masters got smart enough to learn how to control us without the whip.
Yeah.
Well, we still have the metaphoric whip, and that comes in many ways, shapes, and forms, but without the overt slavery, right? Make us think that we're not slaves.
Yeah.
Make us think that we're free. And then looking out at the world today, from our place here, looking out at the world today and seeing the crap that's going on out there. And, I mean, look at the presidential race. What a circus. And this is what this is freedom? We're only this smart?
Yeah.
I mean, we've only learned this much. Come on, humanity.
No.
And then you think, okay, well, what are the masters doing now? Masters, the ones that are poking all these sore wounds and pulling all these strings, and they're the ones that are collecting the material still. If we're still a slave race, then what are slaves doing? Slaves are not just sitting there, right? They're doing something productive for the master.
Yeah.
Right? So we're still mining the gold, and we still are mining the gold out of the planet. I mean, it's harder to find now because all the surface stuff is gone. I mean, there are stories about Fort Knox being empty.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean.
But we're still pumping all of the minerals out of this planet. All the carbon-based trees now. All the oils, all the gold, all the silvers, all the metals that they can get. They're still pumping them out at a regular basis.
Now, we live here in Washington State, and tremendous amounts of forests up here. What we call forests. Tremendous amount of trees. A lot of Doug fir, pine, cedar, alder. We've got just wood all over the place here. There's a lot. Logging industry has always been one of the largest industries in the Northwest. We cut a lot of trees down, and you should see the tree yards at the docks.
Mm-hmm.
There are acre upon acre upon, I would even venture some of these places are square mile log yards where they pile up the logs, getting ready to throw on a ship to send overseas. And I mean, I would say daily there's a ship leaving Washington State.
Oh,
at least one.
At
least one. I'm being extremely conservative here because we send a lot of wood overseas. At least one a day leaving here, going to
Russia,
China, normally.
Mm-hmm.
That's the primary. That's at least this is what I've heard.
Yeah.
It's the primary one. Well, let's say it's one of the largest consumers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided, okay, we're sending all these trees, and this is after watching this No Forest video. I said, okay, and I'm sitting here going, okay, if we're slaves and we're mining resources or harvesting resources for the masters, the trees, let's just focus on the trees for now. So here I am, poking around on the internet, start searching for anything in China that showed me the ships arriving and being unloaded and where they were going to.
Yeah.
Anything.
Image searching.
And I may be I don't know, maybe I just am really bad at searching on the internet. I don't know, but I didn't find shit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of references to the Chinese using so many chopsticks that, what was it, an acre
of trees a day?
No, an acre of trees an hour, or something like that. What was it? It was some ridiculous amount of trees that were supposedly being cut up for chopsticks in China. And I mean, it's just like, I was just floored with the amount. So, okay. So, they're using up an acre of trees a day. That would be like, a ship is probably, I wonder how many acres of trees a ship holds. Probably 100, 200.
At least. I mean, those are huge
whatever.
ships.
I mean, huge ships, yeah. So we got a lot of trees and a lot of hours. So maybe that's one ship a week getting cut up into chopsticks, right?
Yeah.
And I may be way off with my math, but so okay, that takes care of one ship a week, or maybe two ships a week. Let's just call it 2 ships a week. But if we've got one a day leaving from here, it's not adding up. All the stuff that we send offshore, the raw materials we send offshore, it doesn't add up where they've been arriving. So stuff's disappearing. Now remember, this is all just theory. So stuff's disappearing out in the ocean. They're shipping it out there, and it's getting picked up and hauled off somewhere else. And that's, kind of putting the theory out there that the masters, the quote-unquote masters, are off-world.
Yeah, and it says approximately 3.8 million trees a year it takes to supply just China with chopsticks.
3.8 million trees.
Yes.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd have to figure out how many trees they could fit in one ship, but they probably could fit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thousands.
100,000 or better. I don't know. Another Google investigation later.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it just wasn't adding up. I feel like something is disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that we're mining, the food that we're growing. The food that we're growing is just that one. I think the numbers that are publicized are so skewed. I think we produce way more than the planet can eat. And I honestly think we produce. Well, geez.
What we do?
Look at this. Look, at least America is just ridiculous with the waste. I mean, I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I mean, I throw a lot of food away. Normally because I let it sit in my refrigerator for like a year. But that's a hazard of being a pastor, right?
Yeah.
So this all just wasn't adding up, and that kind of took me into a pretty dark place. I'm like that feeling of helplessness. All right, if it's this magnitude and it's been going on for this long, wow, how in the hell do you get out of that mess?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've got this movement going on the planet right now of awareness and consciousness and people waking up. And granted, I see it out there. I've seen a tremendous growth in this area in the last 10 years. Tremendous growth. But it's still just a tiny drop in the bucket of humanity, of society.
Of the 8 billion people.
Of the 8 billion people. It's still just a very small sliver. And obviously it hasn't, if we're thinking under this scenario, this prison planet scenario, it hasn't gotten to the point with the masters that they're ready to intervene completely. They keep a tight control on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at all the inventors and the scientists and the biologists and that have mysteriously disappeared just in the last 10 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at these major industries that these mining and coal and oil industries that so much other advancement has been made in technology and in the way we do business over the last 100 years. But it seems like with these industries, it's still the same. It's just produce as much as you possibly can get it. How can everything else progress except for these industries that are all about the consumption of the resources? Right.
Well, oil's a great example of that, right? I mean, we've had the technology to go beyond oil for a long. It was created in parallel with gasoline.
Yeah.
The electric motor was I can't remember if they made the first car out of electric motor. There was a really early on in the game there was electric motors out there. Maybe it was in the Tesla era, which would have been the same time.
Well, there's a picture from the 40s with Henry Ford, and he built a whole car out of hemp. And it ran on alcohol.
Right.
And the hemp was lighter than the steel and more strong than the steel.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had it.
This is the control. This is, I mean, under this prison planet scenario, if you look for the control out there and the intervention by the masters, it's pretty damn easy to see. I mean, like I said, the disappearances the last 10 years of people that were stepping out on the world stage to change the world. They had, the fuelless generators, the cure for cancers, and the cure for cancer has been stomped on for a long time. I mean, look at Raymond Rife.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, the 40s, right? 30s, 40s?
30s, 40s, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's been getting squashed for a long time. And we don't really have the greatest records beyond that, historically. I mean, there's some other events that stand out that were recorded. But here in our recent history, you can see it everywhere. So that's kind of a dark thought.
Yeah.
And in this world of evolution for consciousness, to come across such a dark thought and dark contemplation kind of set me back here the last month. I was like, I did the roller coaster of depression and hopelessness to slipping into oblivion, right, where I just got numb, to anger. That's but the question I still have to ask is, what can you do with that? How do we overcome that? Or is it a matter of overcoming? Have the masters left us to... Now, there's another line I went down. Have the masters left us to our own our own devices. And it's just a residue of the control system that now is taking control. So we got humans that are now taking care of everything, right? They're the corporate CEOs of humanity. And there's a lot of evidence out there for that whole scenario too. The Illuminati, the Mason.
Well, just to get back to what you were saying, the amount of trees that we export every year, to places that have oodles and oodles and oodles of trees themselves. Why are we sending trees overseas?
Exactly.
When there's trees overseas.
Yeah, I forgot that point. That Russia is a huge forest.
Yeah.
That's all Russia is. It's a huge forest. Well, there's more there than that, but. It is a huge forest, and China has got their own forest. Mm-hmm. So even if they're going through, a zillion freaking chopsticks a day, I don't know, if I was the Chinese government, the first thing I would do is I would say, hey, guys that do plastic, they do plastic over in China, right? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah. They do plastic everywhere.
right. So how about we make a whole shitload of plastic chopsticks and we get rid of this freaking eating wood all the time.
Yeah, and just recycle them.
Yeah, exactly. Throw them in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Hey, how about you guys use some forks, spoons, and knives, huh? But anyways, there's so many trees over there. I would venture to guess that Russia has just as many forests, if not more, than the United States. Mm-hmm. Right?
It's a huge landmass.
Yeah. So, anyways, there's so many proofs, evidences, clues is probably the most accurate term to this whole thing, because it's all theory in the first place.
Yeah.
That point to there's something going on there. So I agree with the majority of the conscious community that the first thing that we should do is get ourselves taken care of. Mm-hmm. Right? Fix what's inside. Center yourself, and I think that as I'm growing and progressing, I think the most important part of that is being able to retain balance while you're interacting with the world around you, because you're not going to change the world from sitting in your chair behind the computer. Granted, the change does happen that way too, by people, interacting on the internet. But
you got to interact.
You got to. We're social creatures, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a reason that right now in this certain time that these kind of ideas have come out to the world stage. There's a reason why we're having this conversation. There's a reason why they made this video. And I think that reason is because it's time for us to wake up to these harsh realities, to these harsh, ways of thinking that, maybe what, we all want to deny that we could have came from a slave race, or, we're the product of a slave race. But, as soon as we can wrap our minds around some of these concepts, that helps us, that gives us the knowledge to help ourselves.
Right. There's also, just in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of talk about the quarantine being lifted. Mm-hmm. The slave drivers have all been driven off, right? There's been a lot of conversation out there about the alien races, the negative mm-hmm. alien races out there, the ones that were doing not so nice things here, have been basically evicted. So, in light of all that, even this is what kind of snapped me out of the real funk about this whole topic, was thinking about this and remembering all the different people that have been, and all the different books and all the different research that's gone into the actual intervention from more benevolent races, and our own contribution, because we are doing some work here.
And we are waking up.
We are waking up. There are a lot of people out there who are raising their energy to significant levels, significant enough levels to have a visible impact on society, on the visible impact of what's transpiring on the planet, what's unfolding now. We are snapping out of it. So that kind of, going through that whole process for me, I was like, oh, yeah. But still, I'm still pissed off about, there's something's going on here. I mean, there's too much evidence that points to something happened here. We've been raping this planet, and stuff's going somewhere because there's an awful lot of it missing. So there's something there, but then there's also freedom coming, right?
Right.
I mean, it's what I feel and what I sense is that we've been going through some tremendous unbefore seen on this planet. This is new. This is something new because it's always been since that early stage of its life, planet Earth, when it was that level surface, right? The smooth surface. Ever since that stage of Gaia's life to now, this is a point where I think there's regeneration, materialization, something. I think there's a renewal coming. For us as a social species, as a collective, I think there's time for us to bury the hatchet in our division and come to the knowing, and the knowing through feeling, through personal experience, that we are intimately connected on a very fundamental basis that we cannot break. There's no way to break it. So it's pointless to even try, right? Yeah. We are all part of the same organism. I mean, if you take a look at Gaia, right? How many different types of organisms grow on this planet? And they're all made from the matter of this planet. So we are all part of Gaia. We grew from day one, sustaining ourselves off of the minerals and the plants and the planet itself, the matter of the planet itself. So even just looking at it from that perspective, it's undeniable that we're all connected.
Yeah.
That's pretty fundamental, if you ask me. I mean, it is pretty damn fundamental, if you ask me. And we're exploring and opening up new and verifiable. We're getting verification on these abilities that people are manifesting, the benefits of meditation, the benefits of knowing over guessing or
having faith.
Yeah, understanding faith, understanding reality in a much more fleshed out and explainable manner, more so now than any other time in history. Have we been able to explain what's going on to ourselves? And that there's so many of us. I know a lot of people don't really need this as deeply as others, but there's so many of us left-brainers out there that need an explanation for what's going on. How does it work? We've got to wrap our head around some of the mechanics behind things, and we've never had a time in our history where we can explain those mechanics like we can now. So our experience base is fleshed out enough, our metaphor base, because it takes metaphor to be able to explain this stuff. Our metaphor base has expanded tremendously in the last 50 years, as the world's getting smaller and our cultural and linguistic differences are melding together and fleshing out meaning the entomology and the meaning of what we express and how we express. It's just a fascinating time to be here, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah.
So, anyways, off my soapbox. Oh man, so this whole thing is just kind of blown me away the last month. The whole thought process has been kind of actually interesting to watch my own personal journey through this thought process. And it's there's still a lot more I need to flesh out inside.
Yeah, but I think this is just another thing that, is a start to the awakening, of a start to each one of us, better understanding ourselves.
Let's call it a part of the awakening instead of a start.
A part of the awakening, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because, all information comes back to, self-information, these are things that if we can realize what happened in our history, we can, what do they say, if you know what happened before, you're not going to do it again.
Right.
But it's just another stepping stone.
Sure enough. Oh. Okay, so we took a couple minute break there, and we're back. Let's dig into a couple of other areas out of that video. He talked about quarries quite a bit, and showed some video evidence, or his evidence was things like Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest ones he showed. And plus, he showed a lot of actual quarries.
Yeah.
And
modern
some of the
quarries.
comparisons between what the quarries look like and what mountains look like. And there is some pretty striking evidence there too. Some of the curved stuff, we have these big diggers, gigantic diggers. These things have like 50-foot diameter wheels on them that dig into cliff faces, and there's some pretty startling comparisons to some rock formations that kind of look like it was done with one of those digging wheels.
Yeah.
That stuff, it has to be in parallel. It's in parallel with the trees. If the Devil's Peak is a cut-off tree, it's in parallel to a lot of different mountains and plateaus on the planet have very, very amazing similarities to tree stumps.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or ancient quarries.
There's one part about the one part about his tree stuff that I didn't quite make it for me was the broke off trees. He's talking about showing trees that just got snapped off.
And showing what a stump that looks like,
right.
A tree.
Yeah. Comparing that to some of the mountain ranges and stuff, that one I don't. There's something not adding up there.
Well, with that one, you don't have the hexagonal patterns in the stones. It's just
right. So I think there's a combination of features on the planet. I think some of it is. I think the basalt stuff. It was alive. That it just screams life to me. It was alive, in an organic state, not in a stone state, or if you want, or an inorganic state. So, whether it grew like crystal. Think about it. That's how crystal grows, in that same shape, right? The hexagon, right?
Yeah.
So, if it was a crystal type of life form, that would be silicon, right?
Yeah, silicon.
Right. Is crystal considered silicon? I don't know. Oh, so anyways, but crystal grows. We all know crystal grows. It takes a long time to grow, but it grows. So was this just a faster growing sort of crystalline life form?
Yeah, well, crystals hold energy. We use crystals in our computers. We use crystals I mean, it's like crystals are alive. You know, you can have a personal connection with a crystal.
Right.
You know, but you can also have a personal connection with a tree. You know, and trees are alive, and you know, our trees, our modern trees, you know, our modern vegetation, it reacts to our emotions.
Right.
Know?
Right. So, but if you take the difference I see now compared to what the fossil evidence is, the fossil evidence says that life energy was more. Larger, bigger, more vibrant. The connection that you can have with a tree now compared to the connection you could have with a tree then is a remarkable, striking difference. Because I think because of the way the pollution, the devastation,
the pollution and mind pollution. But think about they said that there was this great fall from grace, right? Well, what if another interpretation that I just thought of talking about that would be, what if the fall from grace was our connection, or not necessarily the carbon-based life form connection to the carbon-based
from
tree,
the silicon
to the
from the silicon or the crystalline.
Yes.
If they're the same, I have to look into that. I think it would still be a silicon. A crystalline would be silicon. But anyways, going from that to carbon-based, is that the fall?
That's the fall. I mean, it could be. I mean, there's many ways to interpret.
Really? I mean, that's an interesting trail to run your thought process through.
Yeah, and if when you watch this video, it talks about the fossils,
and only a third fell. So the 2/3 are what we're calling, from this perspective, is what we're calling the masters. Oh, I'll have to go into that part too. Yeah, I just remembered.
Okay. Huh.
So if here's another issue I went through in the last month. If we're in this prison planet, and they wanted, we talked about how they kind of regulate the growth of things here, right? Our ability just by making them disappear if they need to, right? If they're going to bring something too drastic out or against their plans, they get rid of them. So I'm thinking of this, and then I'm thinking about all the real negative aspects of this, and then I thought about, as above, so below. And now this one took me back down another big spiral. As above, so below. Everybody accepts that, or there's some reality or some version of that as being truth, right? Okay, so if it's as above, so below, when I look out my window, we are essentially slaves. All of society is essentially slaves. Where we have these governments that try to control our complete lives.
Yes. We don't answer to our personal higher calling.
Right. Why do we have to pay to live on? Why do we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on? As above, so below. I look up in the sky, or metaphorically, look up in the sky, and at the deities that are out there, the communication people have been having with deities out there, with entities out there, from the full spectrum of different entities, from angels and archangels to aliens and
Ascended masters.
Yeah, dimensional and all, the full spectrum there. So if I look out there and apply as above, so below, I can't help but think about the governmental structure above. If it's as above, so below, the control structure that is above, not the governmental. We'll just call it the control structure that is up above. If it's as above, so below, it's fucked up there, man. Just as fucked up as it is down here. I mean, and if this is true, if this as above, so below thing is true, then I don't know. Can you trust what the government tells you?
No, you can't trust what
I mean, you can to, I mean, on a certain level, there are certain things that, you ask the government, they have their programs, right, that are designed for society programs, cultural programs, health and welfare programs. They have their programs and things that people get from them that aren't bad, but they're, designed to ease the suffering in some way, shape, or form. So they have those structures there. But if you want anything like freedom, freedom. That kind of puts it in a nutshell. Then that's where you start hitting the walls, right? That's where you start having the disappearances. You have the misdirections, the flat-out lies. The government will flat-out lie to you, right? It's a pretty common event that happens in government, yes. So in light of that, as above, so below, how can I trust anything that really matters? Any of these real amazing messages that come through. And if you'll notice, majority of the stuff that comes through is pretty general. It's pretty, general, and there's a lion's share of fluffy. But when anything of real importance or matter that comes through, how can you trust any of it? How many people have come out on the world stage and said such and such is going to happen on such and such, and been flat out wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, wrong. And most of these things that are being put out there are pretty major events. The asteroid hitting the planet, Planet X, all sorts of things that have come through in channeled forms, right? Or through divine grace or whatever, from some entity, unseen entity. And how can you trust it? Maybe they're sure they'll give you the welfare program stuff, the government program stuff, right?
Yeah.
They'll give you that, and it's truth. So the generalities, the more benign type of information and stuff. But when it comes to something that's important, you can't really trust it because if it's as above, so below.
Yeah. Unless you got the handful of whistleblowers up there.
Or maybe they do.
Yeah.
They have to. They have a handful of whistleblowers. Those are the ones that are pushing things to the edge. Right? But they also have to balance that because
they have a lot of
people down here disappear.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You don't want to give them too much that's going to get them sunk, get them in trouble. Right? So you only give them as much as will be safe for them.
Yeah.
This is a good handler, right?
Yeah.
All right. You only give them as much as they can safely disseminate. But then still, how can you trust it? How can you validate it? This is something that oh God, if you don't have some kind of validation for me, some verification, some validation in some way, shape, or form that I can personally experience, I approach it with amazing skepticism. I mean, so. Anyways, so that's still a big question mark above my head. How can I trust what comes through? Because is that ultimate prime directive of that entity I've been interacting with is to keep me in the state of slavery, keep me here, and not let me allow me to go outside of the lines on their coloring book. It's just there's something there that's just another one of those things that's left a big question mark above my head. What the fuck? Is that what I'm seeing as an angel really my taskmaster?
Yeah.
My slave master?
Wolf in sheep's clothing.
Wolf in sheep's clothing. They dribble the sweetness out of their mouths, and you eat it all up, but as soon as you try to, do anything that's going to step you outside of their realm of control, you get smacked down.
Yeah.
And I've seen that frustration in a lot of people's lives on this conscious path, where it's just they'll have so much put together well within. They get a good balance. They have that good center point, and they're just continually met with challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge, and after challenge after challenge after challenge. I've yet to see the real gravy train here, unless you're going to. Well, I'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean. And so I question everything.
Yeah.
And
and we've said, plenty of times on this show so far that, the best answers, that I get at least are from myself, are from when I'm tapping into, not into calling out to any other deities, but, looking internal, to myself for these answers.
Right.
And I'll get just exactly what it might not be the exact answer, but it'll put me on the steps to getting in the ballpark at least.
Well, that's what has led my. I take everything inside, and it has brought me to these question points, I suppose, a good way to put it. These different thought processes and theories that I'm going through. It's interesting at times.
Yeah, it's not calling out to some other external source to answer these questions.
Exactly.
Because the answers are all there. It's just up for your grabbing.
To a certain extent, I agree 100% with that. I think our it's all accessible on some level, that Akashic record type thing, right? It's all within our reach through some way, shape, or form. But I think the physical human form has certain limitations that I think it's a actual anomaly for the real clear channel, the super clear channel, the audio visual channel. It's an anomaly, and I think we can get to a place where we can have fairly good connection there through work and dedication and an open mind. But I think there's still caps on it for some way, shape, or form, because of our physical existence.
It's
the human being.
I definitely agree. One of the things that's hard for us to wrap our minds around is, how did something come from nothing?
Right.
And I just don't think that those kind of things are easily understood. And we have to reach a certain point before we can access this information.
Yeah.
But for those who are there, who graduate to the higher levels, then
Then, here we go. How do we know we graduate to the higher levels?
Exactly.
Fucking reincarnation. Damn it! Here I am back. Then here we go back to the prison planet theories. You know, there's some sort of a net around Earth that, when we die, our souls get shipped off to the moon to get regurgitated and spit back down here.
Yeah.
Now they're actually doing some remodeling on the moon, so they've kind of released everybody early, so that's why we have 8 billion people on the planet now. They've almost emptied the guff. They just got the maintenance crew up there doing a little bit of painting, and soon they're going to open it back up and get the planet back down to the 500 million. Oh, hang on, that's a different theory.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Yeah. No, man, there's just such a weird, trippy, freaking history on this planet and humanity. I mean, our whole existence is a trip.
A couple other points I want to touch on in this conversation was the whole idea of fossils and these dinosaurs or fish or whatever somehow being carbon-based life forms that turn to stone. And in this video they kind of go on, they kind of talk about what it takes for what they say it takes for carbon-based life forms to turn to stone, and it's oxygen-free environment with heat and lots of pressure. And so with those ingredients combined, that's how you turn a flesh and blood carbon-based life form into stone. When it's not happening today, and there's not very good examples of that actually happening. Whereas a silicon-based life form, when it would die, you would think that would just naturally turn to stone.
Possibly. I mean, the decay that the carbon-based life form experiences, I think, is much more extreme than what would be in a silicon-based.
Yeah. Well,
so that theory actually holds water.
Yeah. Which was going to bring me to the next point. I just want to throw that out there, but we were talking on the break about the Ring of Fire.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, the volcanic ring of fire around the Pacific, right? That's the biggest, most active volcano area. So here we're going back into the video again, back into the No Forest video, and the quarries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, most quarries are closely tied to, depending on what they're mining or quarrying, either some sort of smelting mill or some sort of factory to process whatever ore or whatever raw material they're pulling out. There's going to be a processing plant. I know in a lot of smelting and processing procedures, there's either chemicals used or heat used or a combination of those things. So they can create some pretty toxic shit. I mean, fluoride comes from aluminum smelting.
Yeah.
I mean, that the creation of aluminum is what is putting the fluoride in your drinking water, folks. So, going through all these different processes, and they have all these byproducts. And what do you do with toxic? What do we do with toxic waste? Right? We bury it. Right. We bury it. Okay. Let's say, in the mining process, in the quarrying process here in our ancient history, when there were, 60 mile long or tall trees, or 60 kilometer tall trees, and 100-foot tall men have this big processing plant going, creating this toxic waste. Well, they're going to bury it too, right? So let's say they had this big mining setup all in a straight line, kind of a circle, right? A ring. Let's call it a ring. And they used that ring as the dump area, right? Mm-hmm. That just happened to be the edge of their working area. So they created these dumps there, and they didn't want to put it all over the planet. They just put it in this row. So they buried this toxic waste. And, let's say 1 million years down the road, something ignites one of them. and kind of like those underground coal fires that we see here today.
Yeah.
That they get started burning, and they travel along these ore veins, these coal veins, right? The coal fires. They travel along, follow the path of the coal. So if this stuff's in veins, then it's going to travel along those veins and light all of it on fire, right?
Yeah.
That fire that won't go out, the magnesium fire. So there's this fire that won't go out going on underground in Pennsylvania. There's one of those fires, right? Those coal fires. Well, we've got the Ring of Fire here is buried toxic waste from the massive mining and raping process that happened here on the planet, and the volcanoes are all just burning toxic waste. Well, of course, you skin it over. Eventually, it's going to build up pressure. It has to release, so it pops a hole in the molten scabbing skin of it, and it spews out its pus all over the place. So that theory kind of was really interesting to me when I started thinking about hollow Earth, because the way science says it, we have the mantle, we have the surface, we have the mantle, and then we have the lava layer. I can't remember the terms for all the different layers.
Yeah.
What were they? Anyways, we're like a China, or what do they call those? The Chinese doll.
Yeah.
All these layers,
doll, yeah.
right. All these spherical layers of different layers of material. We have the crust and the mantle, and then the lava layer. Blah blah blah. Well, if hollow Earth, in any way, shape, or form, is real, or there's any reality there at all. I mean, the moon rings like a bell. Why not the Earth? There's been a lot of study and a lot of evidence that points to the Earth actually being hollow, just the way sound waves travel through it. Anyways, if this is a truth, then the whole scientific theory about the way the planet is composed, the way it has a molten core and then these different layers and lava right underneath the mantle, if that's true, there's no possible way the hollow Earth can be true. So that's when the toxic waste starts making sense, because okay, well, see, that's all just in that 700 mile thick layer that the diagrams for the hollow Earth show, like a 600 mile layer skin that comprises or forms the shell. Then there's no way there's lava flowing underneath, so that the toxic waste dump makes sense.
Yeah,
it does make sense.
Yeah.
I
was thinking when you were talking about the 100-foot men just now, and it brought this thought into my head. I watched this video about the Thoth tablets a while ago.
Right.
Spirit Science put it out, and one of the things that was talked about in there was the Lucifer experiment, and how the Lucifer experiment was when the people on Mars, or a faction of the people that used to live on Mars, decided to turn away from love and go in the opposite direction. And being the Lucifer experiment, right? To go, I guess, basically to go, all on ego and selfish gains. So I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about these 100-foot, or there could have been, the beings were, 100-foot beings. And then I started thinking about the movie Avatar, right? So I'm putting all these three thoughts together.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what if the beings that did exist here were like the beings that existed in that movie on Avatar, that connected completely in to nature,
Right.
But these 100-foot tall beings, or these beings that cut it down, those came from an outside source. Or was it could a faction of the beings that lived here that, did live in harmony with the planet, could a faction of them be the Lucifer experiment that turned their back completely on, nature and Gaia, and went against her and decided to destroy her somehow.
Could be that whole theory and that legend came out of, well, where there's smoke, there's fire. So if we had these 100-foot beings, that one branch that decided to, go turn away from nature, was the origin of that legend, right?
Yeah.
It could have been, just like, all of these stories are, these legends and stories and mythologies, there's where there's smoke, there's fire. Majority of them, some of them are completely fictitious and designed just to teach morals or something along those lines, right? But there's most of them have a physical, real experience or an event that happened of enough significance on this planet that it was it had to be burned into the cultural memory.
Yeah.
So we have all the flood myths. That's definitely something that happened. It's burned into our cultural mythologies and planet-wide. So I think there were a lot of events like that were the creation of these legends that, and most of these legends aren't going to accurately say exactly what happened because, it's gone from, do that whole sit in a circle and whisper in someone's ear and let everybody whisper it all the way around the circle, and by the time it gets back, it has zero recognition of what was originally put in the circle. Right? It transforms from mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth to mouth. It changes a little bit each time. So these mythologies and these legends and these stories that we hear now are they may hold kind of a real loose outline of what really happened, but it is nowhere near what the actual effect. Right. The effects may be the same, but the action to cause the effects was completely different. So yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been the 100-foot tall guys are the ones that split, and they became the fallen, right?
Or did life on this planet go so far away from nature that it naturally evolved because of that into a carbon-based life form, because nature couldn't have that connection anymore to it.
Well, there sure has seemed to have been a really dark influence on the planet that tries to steer it away from nature. And I think our society in the last couple of 100 years has really shown that there is definitely a dark element out there that is pushing us away from nature. Granted, we're calling it advancement and technology and making our lives easier, but there is we haven't found the wisdom to build a gun and not shoot it at somebody.
Yeah.
Basically, what it boils down to, we haven't learned our own restraint. So, anyways, that's a whole nother story.
Well, if you haven't watched this video, I would definitely check it out. It's thought-provoking, and there's so much photographic.
And boy, can it take you down a whole bunch of different roads in your mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of these new thoughts have definitely been sparked by this, and kudos to that Russian guy. I don't remember what his name was, but kudos to him for putting this out there, and thank you for challenging my belief structure.
Yeah, exactly. I've been to Devil's Peak Rock. I've seen it in person, and it never.
I was there a week before you showed me that video. As I just got back from South Dakota, and I drove by it twice a week before this video came out. So here's another synchronicity in my life. I just drove by this place, and now it's the fucking centerpiece of this. Like, oh, geez. Here's your sign, Tom.
Yeah. But for somebody to have the foresight to see that, and say, wait a minute, Wait a minute.
Well, that was a whole nother twist in my own thought process when that came out, and I was like, shit, I was just there. And then Tom Sawyer starts running through my head.
Except the warrior, today's Tom Sawyer.
He can fire on you. All right, guys. Well, we'll be having more just casual conversations like this. I like them, and you guys can just kind of listen in on our conversations. We welcome the feedback.
Yeah.
And
any topics?
And what do you guys want us to look into, and what do you want to hear our opinions on? This is definitely opinion dominated show, so
yes.
Don't believe a thing I say. Question everything. If it's not run through the forge, it's definitely not going to be smelted down to the purest form. So test it all, guys. It's my advice: is test everything. But don't beat it over the head after it passed the test so much, though. All right, guys. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste, my friends.